Greetings, gang. Thinker Farmer Dave here. So in this video, I want to go ahead and continue sharing my farm story. So in the last video, I told how I ended up doing some, basically some accounting and some business analysis, and ended up concluding that I needed to raise larger broilers, and I needed to stick with raising Cornish cross chickens rather than Freedom Rangers. And the biggest takeaways I wanted y'all to see is that number one, you have to take time to think, and number two is and this is the most important, you have to emphasize the importance of saying no to things. And the only way you can do that is by knowing what is actually of value in your life. And in this video, I'm going to continue sharing my story and basically the season 2017 spring and some of the things that happened. So after doing my business analysis, I went ahead and decided to change my pricing structure, change some of my production protocols, and I went ahead and also, because I had a restaurant that was interested in buying more of my chicken, or a restaurant supplier, I went ahead and raised an extra batch of 300 chickens for the spring. So previous year I'd raised 900, I was going to raise 1,200 that spring. And on top of that, of course, I was maintaining my tractor and forklift mechanic job 3 to 4 days a week. And by now I had gotten a processing facility built and inspected, and I had the thumb of approval from the Louisiana Department of Agriculture, and ended up having you start raising broilers in Louisiana in about March in terms of putting them on pasture, and I ended up finishing them out by July 4th, and we had some really big rain events during that time, and I was fine-tuning at this point the new processing facility, which, because of all the walls, it was a lot more difficult to clean. And I got to the end of the spring season because I was juggling too many things. I was working on top of the mechanic job, I was working with my neighbor, I was raising broilers, and there was a lot of fine-tuning that I hadn't finished in my model. And I ended up and I was raising them in really small batches. I mean, in the long haul, and the reason I was raising them in small batches was processing wise, I could only process about 100 birds. And I got to the end of the season and I was just exhausted. There were some weeks we would process for the 1,200 birds, we were processing twice a week. And we had a lot of big rain events, and I ended up putting out hay for the birds. And I was also inexperienced. It was my second year, and it took me longer to figure out how to do things, figure out where to get resources, and also develop a system process for everything for the plant. And the inspector wanted to see systems for different things. So kind of the lesson I wanted to share here, and you probably can see I'm carrying grass in my hands. I'm going to get to why I've got these blades here. Just really one lesson, and that's that your work paradigm as a farmer and your business growth model has to have limits to it. What I mean by that, stated another way, is I was looking at my farm business and I was trying to figure out how to make more money, and I figured more chickens means more money. And I had figured out by now that you have to raise the chickens to a certain size, you have to cut up more of them, and some other things. But I felt that if I worked harder and put in more hours, that was going to move my business forward. And the thing I concluded is, this is of course in hindsight 5 years previous from now, 2017, if you are working all the time, then you are not improving. I apologize for the sun, gang. I might go ahead and move our video just a little. We can probably manage with it. if you are working all the time, you're not going to improve in this as an individual. And here's why. I have here 3 blades of grass. You'll notice, I'll just come up close and make sure there's no ambiguity. If you'll notice, these 2 have been snipped off by the cows, and this field was grazed about a week and a half to 2 weeks ago. So it's had some rest. We still have some blades of grass that have that tip on it, but the grass that has been snipped off like this has not had the time to conduct photosynthesis with the sunlight, pull sunlight energy, and also carbon dioxide from the air and water from the ground to regrow that tip. And so this plant, if we brought the cows back now and the cows grazed that off again, this plant's been overgrazed because it hasn't had time to pulse carbon and energy back into the soil and into the plant's root systems. It's being overgrazed if we bring it back now. And this grass here has already grown its tip, so it has energy stored. It can be grazed again now. But you need that tip on the plant to know that it's regrown. And when in doubt, you give your plants more rest. Well, if rest is so critical for an ecosystem, it's also critical for the individual and for a business. Another way of saying this is you cannot push growth in your business. You have to let your business's growth pull you along. If you're pushing, then something's usually wrong. You're impatient. Usually you've overrun yourself on commitments. And it's really just a recipe for burnout for you as the individual. I'm going to say it again. I've never heard it said this way. But in a natural system, rest is fundamental for improvement. And if you are working all the time as a farmer, then you are never going to improve as an individual. It's counterintuitive. We often think in our minds that if we're going to become the best, we need to train all the time and push our businesses. But reality is that is a guarantee for failure. And it doesn't matter. You can see it in nature with animals and plants getting rest. You can see it in a really highly skilled athlete that is training. And in videos and movies that are done, you often see the person training and working really hard. What you don't see is how much they have to rest. But rest is fundamental for improvement. And I would just add this thought, and that's that nature has its own timetable, and it's not yours or ours. And usually nature wants to do things at a slower, more patient pace. Look at the seasons of the year. Winter is a time of rest. Spring and summer, grass grows way faster. The landscape, the trees, everything grows faster, but there is a cycle. There's an ebb and a flow. And even in a 24-hour day, an animal or a plant has a cycle of rest and also work. With our modern 21st century, with electricity, we can work longer hours. That has its place. I'm not going to say there's never a time to do that, but ultimately you need to stick to nature's template if you're going to be successful as a farmer. Really, in the early years, in hindsight, looking back, I should have been focusing on saving myself more time and allowing more margin in my business instead of focusing on making more money. Now, the backstroke to that is if you spend all your money to save time that you really don't need, you can your business will not cash flow. You'll run out of resources to run your business, and that's one of the main reasons farm businesses go under, is because they overspend themselves and their cash flow, waiting for the return of the money from the sale of their products, is too long, and they'll go out of business for that reason. But yeah, I'm going to keep this video short, and I'll just say in closing, gang, don't cheat nature of her design of work and also strategic rest. Blessings. Take care.